Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Milestone's Hotel Budget Planning During a Pandemic, or as we've lovingly subtitled today, Do More with Less. Thank you again for being here. My name is Tammie Carlisle. I am the head of hospitality for Milestone, and I am joined by my colleague, Keith Brophy, who is our Senior Director of Omnichannel Strategy at Milestone. And we look forward to being here with you today. So today's going to be a little bit interesting. Let's face it, this is not a typical year. This is not every person that we've talked to. This is not a typical budget season. And so I think today's not going to be a typical webinar. The goal today is really to give you guys questions, ideas, tips, strategies, really things to help you think and survive budget season, right? So the goal today, Keith and I are really going to have a dialogue and kind of back and forth for the next 5 hours. No, I'm kidding. The next 45 minutes or so is our goal. And we'll leave time at the end for questions. Just a few housekeeping items as far as how Zoom webinar works, and then also Milestone webinars. So the Zoom webinar, if you have questions, please feel free to ask as we go along. There is a Q&A box on a Zoom webinar. You can ask those questions there, and we will do our best to answer during the presentation, or if not at the very end. And we will publish answers to questions as well as the recording, slides, and any notes or any information after the webinar. Typically, our team will have this up on our blog within 48 hours. So with no further ado, like I said, we've got a strange and fun agenda today. I'd like to introduce Keith, let him say hello, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Oh, thank you, Tammie. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. It's great to be here and participating with this very important discussion for a lot of our partners.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. Really looking forward to it. I know you've got a lot of, you've got some great perspective, because not only do you work with our customers, but you also, as was I on the hotel side once upon a time, granted, you know, you much more recent than I think my history. So this will be great. Before we get started, just one little thing about Milestone, for those of you that aren't familiar, Milestone, our goal is to help organize and amplify your digital information to reach the right audience. So at a basic level for hotels, that means we want to help you get eyeballs in front of those consumers who are actually going to stand a chance at booking and making a reservation at your hotel, or filling out an RFP, or eating in your restaurant, or all the things that drive conversion. We do a lot of omni-channel services, so everything from website design and SEO to software. We have our whole presence cloud, analytics, schema, local, and reviews. So lots of things about us. Again, our focus for today's webinar is strictly hospitality, and that is a large percentage of our customers, but we do also work outside the hospitality space, and we're able to bring some of that back to you. So on that note, we are going to ask a couple questions of the audience throughout. We were really kind of curious, and I've done this with a few other groups, the Marketing Advisory Board for HSMAI and some other customers as well. So I'm going to start by setting up the first poll, and you're going to see a poll pop up on your screen. We'll give you guys just a few minutes to enter. And the first question we have for you, because it's probably the first thing you should be thinking about for budget season, is your hotel open today? Right? If your hotel is not opening until March of next year, you probably are going to have a little bit different strategy than a hotel that's open today versus a brand or management group and the like. So we'll give about probably about 10 more seconds to see for people to answer. Really, it's great. 42% so far is yes, and 30% are multiple properties yes. So that's a little over 70% of the audience. I'm going to go ahead in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, end the poll. And you guys can see that 46% are open, 27% have multiple properties that are open, and another 14% have some properties open. So only about 14% of the audience is not currently open, but definitely something to to be thinking about as you go along for budget season. Keith, did these stats kind of align with what you anticipated seeing on the webinar today?
It's kind of what I was hoping to see, was to hear that more of the properties are open, or because that has been an ongoing challenge for a lot of our partners. But it's great to hear that some optimistic and positive news. But it does align with the fact that we still have some that are struggling. But it's great that everybody's doing is opening and doing what they can.
Yep. Yeah. No. Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's the results. Awesome. So let's talk about 2021. Let's be real, resources are gonna be tight. So like I said, when we started putting this together, we started joking around with a lot of things around do more with less, and decided that that's probably where we just needed to head and stop joking and get serious. As you guys probably know, you probably have fewer people, right? You're doing more things. Many of you are doing jobs that you never anticipated you'd be doing on top of what you're currently doing. Maybe trying to find ways to automate, to do, so you can do more things with less people. Are there things you can do to speed up processes, to make it easier to interact, or to automate things so that you don't have to interact? We'll talk a little bit about, how do you improve efficiency and yield? Anybody that's read the Atomic Habits book by James Clear knows he talks a lot about 2% improvements over time that leads to a huge growth curve if you look at a year versus 1 to 2% unimprovements, I guess, for lack of a better word. Of course, trying to make sure you're generating an ROI and a return in all this, and then thinking through some legal compliance issues. So obviously some different bullets to be thinking about. Keith, from your perspective, I know we've chatted a little bit about some ideas and thoughts, but maybe you want to chime in a little bit on a couple of these?
Sure. Well, with regards to fewer people, I think it's a very broad topic, but there's a lot of different ways that we can look at it and how hotels can be positioning themselves. I mean, along with fewer people, yes, from a personnel perspective, there's also important to recognize that 2021, there's going to be fewer people to convert. There's going to be fewer customers, right? It's all the forecasts are that it's going to be a while until business fully bounce backs and everybody's back to the pre-COVID performance numbers. So the audience base that you're going after is going to be much smaller. So there's definitely fewer people, and it's really next year really is all going to be about occupancy share, and they who get the guests win, right? So part of your strategies for next year should also be, what am I going to do to make sure that everybody finds me, books me? Because I can't afford to let a customer go, because I'm not going to have the ability to fall back on corporate business. I'm not going to have 52 weddings to help me fill over the weekend. I've got to really go after everybody who shows up and says they want, they're interested in looking at me. The other thing when you think about fewer people is there's fewer competitors as well, because where we're saying, particularly in the digital sector, while you guys may have had to pause your paid campaigns, so did everybody else. So sometimes it's the first one out who's raising their hand saying, look at me, pay attention to me. Those are the ones who are actually performing very well and seeing very strong returns. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of look at that. Fewer people is not necessarily a negative. It could be how you craft your strategies, and could be an opportunity to be very aggressive. But with that, from the more automation component, yeah, I'm sure a lot of our partners would love to find ways to streamline their services a little bit better, or to find some ways to solve problems through some electronic source. Because how many of you had to cover front desk shifts with reduction in personnel, and had to spend time on phone answering questions from clients, from customers who were looking to book you, and you're spending your time and time in answering the same questions, finding ways to get that information out. I mean, you guys should be using, having notes down, like, what are the people always asking me? Because why aren't they getting this information off the website? I need to make sure it's there, because that way, if I can get that information out, I can cut down on phone calls. I can be more freed up to provide other services. My front desk people can actually be focusing on giving that great service rather than giving information. And that service is what's going to lead to some great reviews, and those great reviews are going to get you more people through the door. So automation is in part should be part of your revenue efforts, but it's also got to be a way to make everyone's life easier so people don't burn out and get tired every day of doing the same work over and over.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So again, just some things to be thinking about as you're planning. The other thing from a little more of a trends or high level, and Keith and I were talking about this over the last week. You've seen a ton of articles, you've seen a ton of things that we're in the midst of a digital transformation, right? That COVID has accelerated so much change. If you think about the way we shop or the way we do business today, most people, that in-person exposure has decreased quite a bit. There's a lot more. I have my groceries delivered a heck of a lot more than I did 6 or 9 months ago. And so the more you can educate and communicate and kind of self-sell through digital, the better off you're going to be, because digital is going to continue to be a large revenue generator. And Keith, I know you and I were talking, on the restaurant side and some of the digital transformation for restaurants. Out here in California, I still can't go sit inside a restaurant. I can sit outside to eat, but we can't go inside yet. But some of the changes, even in your habits, as far as apps and things along those lines.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you go back and you think about if we were to do a quick survey of people, how many of you had a food delivery app on your smartphone on March 1st versus how many of you had it on May 1st? I'm pretty sure you would see a pretty significant spike, because with restaurants being open and life being, footloose and fancy feet, we didn't necessarily always need Grubhub or Uber Eats, but this all hits. You can't go out to a restaurant. You can't even go in and sit. You don't want to spend any time waiting for your food to be delivered. You want it brought to you with as little contact as possible. So the digital experience of basically having your entire restaurant dining experience in the palm of your hands has significantly altered the dining experience going forward. So that's just one of the many ways in which the landscape has changed, that now everybody is so much more reliant on that digital interaction to give them all the information they need, because there is hesitation to, I don't want to go into the hotel. I don't want to go into the restaurant. I don't even want to go into the store. I mean, like, if they can bring it out to me, all the better, right? So if I could just get somebody to bring me the beach in my backyard, that'd be the perfect vacation, but I'm still waiting on that technology.
Yeah, and you're so right. I mean, I actually went to Nordstrom with the anniversary sale. I shopped online, drove up, popped my trunk. They put the bags in, and I walked away. Would never have done that last year. Never. I also, as everyone knows, anyone that knows me knows my penchant for Diet Coke. I actually had a big gulp delivered to the house this morning because I didn't have enough time to go out and get it, because disclosure, was dealing with some internet issues this morning. So anyway, and so think about these things and how they're changing our industry and how consumers are going to be booking, and really be mindful of that as you're putting together your budgets. So with that, we're going to move on to our next poll question. And this is related to, has your budget process changed for 2021? And while we go through, there's 4 different answers. There's a no, pretty straightforward. A yes, we're starting earlier. Yes, we're starting later. And yes, we're skipping it all together. So Keith, I don't know about you, but I am hearing such a mix, depending upon who I'm talking to, of, hey, we're starting way earlier because we want to get our hands around things now, or we don't even know what October is going to look like, much less January. So we're actually waiting till much later in the year. What are you hearing from some of our clients?
No, I think you're exactly right that it's a mixed bag, and it ultimately comes down to people are doing what they can to get the most information they can. So whether you're looking to start sooner or later, I think thinking through how you're going to address strategies for next year should be starting right away, right? Even though you may not necessarily be filling out your spreadsheet of what your mix is going to be and what market you're targeting, you should be thinking about, how am I going to get customers and how am I going to integrate the experience that my team has been operationalizing just to get people in the hotel. How am I going to turn that into how am I going to convey that from a digital experience?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing that I've been hearing a mix of, and I went ahead and closed the poll so you can see it's a pretty almost even split. Probably the yes starting the process later a little bit more, but there's definitely people starting earlier than previous years as well. Some people going through the same process and skipping altogether. The other interesting thing I've been hearing from some, especially on the management group side, is a trend towards doing more at the corporate level and putting less onus on the properties, especially given the fact that a lot of properties have less people than they had in years past. I don't know, Keith, if you're hearing the same thing.
We're hearing, yeah,
Yeah.
in some cases. It's not all, but like I said, it's definitely a mixed bag of everyone's trying to solve the problem in a way that works best for them. I don't think there's a true definitive best way to do it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So just and know we're all in this together. One of the bright spots from my perspective, this was actually released, I saw it yesterday, so pretty much in the last week, but some trending data from Think with Google. If you guys have never played with thinkwithgoogle.com, it's a great website by Google that has lots of fantastic trending data. So this is looking at some search interest over time in the US. And you can see things like weekend getaways, day trips, weekend trips, vacations near me, lake trip are not only in most cases kind of back to the levels they were at in December or January, but in many cases even surpassing, especially if you look at things like lake trip and that. Keith, I know we talked a little bit about some different trends and things. Would love your take on what you're seeing and maybe some other terms or interests that you are seeing having some success for our clients.
Sure, it's very interesting that what your numbers kind of reflect is that, or the graph is showing, is that people are dreaming, people are shopping, and I'm sure a lot of our partners are probably saying, while there may be a decrease in sessions, they're just because of the amount of demand, this traffic is still there, but what they're seeing is a shortening of people waiting until the last minute to book, either for making sure they get the best deal because their finances are a little tight, or they just don't know what the weekend is going to have in store for them. So the shopping window is getting longer, but the booking window is getting extremely short. And what has been for many of our partners, we have several that are in like the what I would refer to as like rural destinations that typically in the summertime they do well, but they are having record years, and it's because people are flocking out of the cities to get to areas where they can be outside, have some room to move. I mean, when I think it was last week, one of the top markets for the top performing markets for Star in the nation was a market in Montana. And while I'm sure it's a great destination, when is that typically the place to be in August? Right? People are generally flocking to the beach destinations. So that is certainly the beaches are performing very well, but some people are also very hesitant to go to the very crowded beaches, so they're venturing out to other areas. So where we're seeing a challenge, but it's also a great opportunity for people who are embracing it, is if people are flocking the cities. If you've got people who are, I'm not going to go to New York City, I'm going to go to upstate New York, then how do the urban destinations compete? And that's where we're seeing a lot of success. And they're shifting to going after what people are shopping for. If you were looking for an outdoor experience, they're highlighting the parks and the outdoor attractions and the venues that don't typically draw a ton of search demand or are not necessarily the top places that people are thinking of why you would go to Washington D.C. for example. I mean, DuPont Circle is turned into one of the destinations into Washington D.C. And while it was always a thriving area for dining and nightlife, people are going there just because they want to be able to put down a chair and sit outside. Right. So for locals and tourists alike, everybody's looking for outdoor destinations. So places that are looking around and saying, what is happening here and how can we highlight this and celebrate it, are the ones that are performing very well. So it's either what's happening in the local market that you want to highlight, or what does your property have that is truly unique that truly unique, maybe an extreme, but there are some examples where we have partners that have some great attributes that speak very well to what people are looking for. One that comes to mind is a hotel in Florida that is it's an all suites hotel, but they have premium rooms with private plunge pools, so guests are able to book a private pool. I don't have to share a pool with anyone else. I don't have to see anyone else. I just check my room, have great vacation, sun, pool, food. Those rooms are selling like crazy. Which those are typically the latter ones to sell because they're premium, but people want that private experience. So if you have balconies, are you highlighting those because people want the extra space to move? The extended stay products are doing very well because people want kitchens and places to cook in the event there's no restaurants, or there's limited restaurants. They want to be able to be certain that they have food. So changing to what people are traveling and just what is it the needs are now is where a lot of properties are filling the gaps and stealing a couple of occupancy points away from their neighbors.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great segue, Keith, into kind of going through and starting with some tactics and some things to really be thinking about as you're budgeting. So as Keith mentioned, it's how do you highlight those unique selling points or the things that are drawing people to you. Maybe you're not an extended stay property, but you know that there's dining nearby or things that you can communicate. So make sure that as part of your budget process for next year that you're budgeting for content updates, you're budgeting for communication. And, I mentioned website content here, but this could also be social media. This could also just be messaging and email, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you look at this image, honestly, I'm sitting here kind of almost cringing every time I look at this image, and I love New York and I can't wait to go back. But all those people really just give me some anxiety right now. So if especially if you are in a city destination and you've got photography like this all over your site, you may want to budget for some newer photography with less people and more open space. We've got a property out here in Silicon Valley. And if you think Silicon Valley, right, keep people coming for Google or Intel or Cisco or Facebook and the likes. And those travelers aren't coming right now. And so they really shifted some focus. And if you look at their website content, there's a lot more information about, to Keith's point, like the parks and the outdoor areas and the things that can be done to enjoy a vacation without being in a crowded space full of people. So it's putting content and thinking through, your safety messaging. You don't have to necessarily say this is what we're doing for COVID, and hopefully at some point is a vaccine or like you're able to kind of shift away, but your safety messaging, what are you doing to make people comfortable and feel safe so they can travel with you? And updated videos, updated images, new offers, and think about your current audiences today, how they've changed since this time last year. And then also think about the future, because your audience that's going to book short-term today may not be the same folks that are going to book a year from now. I can't go to Europe right now. Was supposed to go, didn't happen in July, but we're already planning our trip for next summer, right? So make sure you're thinking about, you have enough information to really help both that customer that's going to book tomorrow and then that customer that's going to book longer term. Keith, what kinds of things are you seeing from clients or things that are working well as far as content and updated messaging?
Well, I think you raise a great example here with New York City, and if you think about, there's 20 plus markets in which right now the entire NBA season is not taking place in that location. That venue is dark. It doesn't have anything going on, and that's events that people would rely on for demand and business. All of it's happening in Orlando in a bubble, right? So if you are spending time optimizing for, we're walking distance from Madison Square Garden right now, that may be good from a legacy search perspective, but that's not what people are looking for. So just, you could change a couple sentences, you can change a caption on an image, you can change out an image to focus on something else. But one of the things that I would kind of go back to, and one of the points that you had raised before, Tammie, was the enabling customers to self-educate. Right now, people have time to shop. They have time to get information. They have time to spend time on your website to learn everything there is about you. And prior to COVID, there was already a growing trend of meeting planners, corporate planners, wedding planners who did not like the model of, I will look at your website and then submit an RFP and come in for a site inspection. They wanted you to give them everything that you could on the website. They wanted it to be, I want all the information here, and after I get it all, I will narrow it down, and then I will tell you that, yes, I'd like to come in and do a site inspection. That the behavior has changed, and now even more so with nobody wanting to come and do a site inspection because, you know, of contact. The updates you have on your meetings, the information you have on weddings, the opportunities that you have for highlighting the different elements in your rooms is a huge opportunity for people to really tell everybody all about your hotel and answer all their questions. You know, do you have connecting rooms? Do you offer rollaways? A lot of partners don't have that information. They want you to call and ask, or they want you to get to the hotel and ask. But I'm not going to book right now. I'm not going to go ahead and make a reservation and then hope when I get to you, you might have connecting rooms. I want to know now, right? And because so in looking at that, either looking at the content that you have to make sure it's rich, full, and helps answer people's questions and solve their problems is one of the biggest areas that we would recommend people focus on right now. Because, you know, again, think about all the brides that are sitting there trying to plan a wedding. Show me as many photos. I want to see every room you have, and I don't want to see a meeting room that has a U-shaped setup. I want to see what this room looks like for a wedding, even if it's only 50 people, because that's all we can have for a wedding right now. Show me what this room looks like.
Yep. No, Keith, you segued so nicely that I actually switched the slide like half a second early because
Almost like we planned it.
So in agree. I know it's almost like we have the same opinions. No, I'm kidding. Content and answering questions are so important. I did a session back in January for the HSMAI Marketing Strategy Conference, and the video's online. It's 6 minutes and 40 seconds, so it's a very short topic, but on zero click. And for those of you that haven't heard the term, Rand Fishkin has done some great content on it as well, but it's the idea of Google surfacing answers in these featured snippets or this box and this results. And so to Keith's point, the more questions you're answering, the more content you have on the website. And, you know, you don't have to spend millions of dollars on this, but really make sure that you have a strategy on how you're going to add content and answer questions, both on the website and your social channels, your email, will enable you to increase visibility. So now there's a bit more to here than just adding some FAQs to a site. There's some technical prowess as well, and happy to chat about that offline. But as you can see in the example on the left, does Hotel Nico allow pets? There's this great box. There's a picture of Buster the dog. There's a whole answer about it. If I were to do this search with Google Assistant and voice, that should read the same questions. On the right-hand side, similar style hotel, and these are both hotels in San Francisco, and the answer is coming from bringfido.com. So there is an answer. It's just not coming from the hotel. And so really it's about making sure that you're answering those questions, so you're helping your guests, but also keeping them from getting the answer on sites like Expedia, or in this case, Bring Fido, and really making sure that you're giving them as much information as possible to help them in the decision process. And I would say, one of the things you can do here that would really, I know sometimes we get very blinded when we're looking at our own websites and looking at the things we do, is maybe ask a friend or two who isn't in the hospitality industry to take a look and give you some feedback. Were they able to find questions and answers? I know I've been doing research on a couple different vacation options and have actually been very frustrated by the lack of information that I've been able to find. So the more you can add this information and add things like this to your site, the better off you're going to be. So thanks, Keith. I'm going to kind of move a little more technology side and talk a bit about mobile strategy. And You probably heard, there's definitely some things to consider. So there's accelerated mobile pages, which we believe very highly, and there's lots of content on our site and to help improve your site speed, help improve your visibility. But even if you can't budget for that, at a simple level, you should be looking at things like, this is a tool called Page Speed Insights. It's a Google tool, and it'll give you your score on both mobile and desktop. And we always tell people you want to try and get to 90 and above. And if you're not, so in the example here is a 94, but if this was a 34, for example, underneath this lab data, it actually tells you the things you can do to improve your site speed. Why is that important? That's important because site speed's a ranking factor, which means if your site speed sucks, you're going to struggle rank. You're not going to rank as well as if you have good site speed. And it'll tell you the things you can do, and you can take that screen grab to your developer, your partner, and ask them how much will it cost to fix these things, and then put that into your budget. Same thing like I said, accelerated mobile pages will help out. Keith, I know we had talked about a couple other things as well. I don't know if you want to bring up mobile apps, hotel check-in, things like that. So anything else from your perspective on the mobile front?
Well, I would just know there's a lot of people who are always going to ask the question of, is this the year that I need to have an app? All right, right. Should I invest in it? And for many partners, the expense to create a hotel specific app is as much, if not more, than adding another website. And I think my opinion and our opinion in general is, if you have a great mobile experience through just a regular, well optimized mobile site, and maybe are deploying something like Progressive Web App, in which somebody can have that app-like experience added to their phone, there should not need to be a need to create a separate app. But with that said, as a lot of our partners are looking to add, or may have already added some additional services like mobile check-in, keyless entry into the rooms, some of those that may integrate well into an app, it's something that would be a value for you to consider. And we're not going to say it should not be something you shouldn't do. It's all going to be depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish and how you want to deploy the different tools onto somebody's phone. But as far as it goes, it's one of the best ways to actually, to get to a customer, because you can sit in their pocket all day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting. Because I know that mobile has taken a little bit of a hit. We're seeing the percentages a little bit less than it was, pre-COVID, for example. But I actually find I'm using my mobile phone almost as much, if not as much, as I was before COVID. I think the only difference is I'm not traveling quite as much, but even now if I'm out, or sometimes it's just easier sitting on the couch to grab my phone than it is to, walk into the office and grab my laptop to do a search or to look up something. So I think mobile is definitely a strategy worth investing in. That kind of brings up our next topic, and that's, should you budget for a new website? So I'll preface with unbiased. Yes, everyone should budget millions of dollars for a new website. Okay, kidding. Let's kind of think about that question. And this is something that really only you can answer. I'll give you kind of my thoughts on it. What I personally believe is that you really need to look at, like, when did you last do your website and how is that impact going to be? So for example, if your site is 4 years old at this point, it doesn't have the latest technology, doesn't have a great mobile experience, good content, the ability to update all the things, then I would definitely say you want to consider adding budget for next year to, or even end of this year, to get your website updated. I think it's going to help you compete more in this new environment where hotels aren't just kind of sitting there, filling up constantly without really having to do anything, right? Again, it's a boxing match now. It's a street fight to get as many heads in bed, feet in sheets, whatever cliche we want to use. And so having a new website can definitely help with that process. I know we've seen a couple clients that were going through website revamps and, have launched sites in May, June that have actually seen numbers, they're up year on year in their revenue based on that. Keith, I know you and I kind of talked, I think you had some similar thoughts, but you also had a few other points to add to that argument.
Yeah, again, going back to the fact that customers are going to have more time to shop online and they're spending more time trying to figure out where they want to go, they're going to be comparing your online presence, your online experience to everybody else in town. So it really is going to be, it may very well come down to be a fashion show. Which one looks better? I mean, but one of the ways it's going to be, hopefully the way they're finding you is going to be how it's built and the technology behind it to help them find you better. But when they find you, you have to have a product that conveys we're up to date. We are the quality that you're looking for. We are worth your investment. We put just as much time and attention into how we look online as we look when you walk into the lobby, because that's the physical extension of your website from there. But one thing that I will say, I would strongly encourage, if there's not an opportunity for our partners to invest in a new website, I then would defer back to really consider investing in expanding your photo library. Like there's a lot of these are the photos we had 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and many of you have updated the property, or the photo does not look as up to date as the room product you have now. So either get your photos up to date or expand the gallery to have, again, multiple photos from meeting rooms and various setups and angles and configurations. Show more than just the guest room from 2 angles and a bathroom, because there's multiple bathroom configurations. I mean, every room type would make it's going to be more likely to convert if you have 4 or 5 images highlighting the amenities. But too many of people have, I've got 2 room photos. That's enough, isn't it? No, it doesn't convey all that you're able to deliver. So between photos, great photos make a great website. So if you've got the alternative, if you can't do one, I would encourage the other. Ideally, do both.
Such a great point. A great point to think about. Yeah, it comes back to that content. On the subject too, with the, should we do a new website? I think it actually aligns with ADA and conformance issues. So one of the things I would highly recommend is you should be looking over your site. Is it ADA conforming? Does it conform to the WCAG guidelines? And if it's an older site and it doesn't, that's definitely a nod, in my opinion, towards redoing your site. You really to kind of help with that perspective. We're also seeing, Keith, I'd love, chat for a minute on the moving goalposts ADA conformance, and maybe some of the, I know one of the latest things we're seeing is ADA conformance challenges around like PDFs, for example. So maybe you want to talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah, it seems from a technology perspective, this is almost, like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill, and that just when we think we've got it, the folks that are driving these lawsuits find yet another loophole to be able to send out more lawsuits. So for those that are following or more an update, what's been happening historically is previously lawsuits were going out to hotels because the websites were not providing the same level of online experience to somebody with a disability as they would be to somebody without a disability. And a lot of them were stemming from the technical aspects of the website. So the buttons are too close together for somebody who is digitally challenged, or the color backgrounds were a little blurred, or doesn't offer enough contrast for someone with a visual impairment, or it doesn't allow for somebody to be able to use a sight reader to actually read the content and actually be able to say, to see that you are flashing an ad on an image that says, fantastic special offer, save 25% off. If they could not read that copy, therefore they're missing out on a purchase opportunity. They're not having the same experience. Well, technology companies like us fix that problem, only to have them come back and be like, yeah, you fixed the technology part, but you don't have the right content. So now you're not necessarily saying, you're not mentioning you don't have any accessible room, or you don't have Braille menus in your restaurant. If I have to pick up the phone and call you to ask you a question about, do you offer an ADA service? Then that means I don't have the same customer experience as somebody else. So with those, historically, a lot of partners have been vulnerable. And like I said, just when you think we tamp it down, they find something else. Well, what they've done now is they're looking at PDFs on websites and saying that a sight reader can't read this information to tell somebody what is on here. So if I'm looking at, if I was to open up a PDF menu, there would be, there's no indicator that would let me know that, oh, by the way, this is the breakfast menu that, is going to give you this information. Or perhaps when you open up the menu, you can't actually read it for somebody who's got a sight reader to be able to say, yes, we do have Eggs Benedict. So PDFs are an area that's very vulnerable. It's something that's relatively easy to fix. It's something that we are working on as far as solution with our partners to be able to streamline. But just know that that's the next thing that these guys are focusing on. But a little bit over time, hopefully we'll be able to get everything reduced down, where they will finally stop being able to find things to say, you are not being a good partner to ADA travelers, which I think is a great thing, that if ultimately we can all be, show that we do care about those travelers and we're taking care of their needs. And in some cases, it's good that these people are raising up that this is a vulnerability of ours, so we can address it. But it is a challenge. It is something that is costing partners money, and going into next year, that's not something where you should be wasting your time dealing with a lawsuit or risking valuable revenue to be paid to pay somebody to go away while you address something, simply because you hadn't gone in and changed your dinner menus.
Yeah, absolutely. And so again, it doesn't have to be a ton of money, but it can definitely, these are the kinds of things that will save you money and headaches in the long run. I think we're gonna shift gears a little bit away from like the website or your physical plant, and maybe some more off-page and other strategies. So I know from a local standpoint, we always recommend to have a little bit of budget set aside to do things like optimizing your profile. So if you're thinking of Google My Business or being local, and even if you're a branded property, looking at what the brand is doing for you, making sure is your information accurate. Just as recently as last week, I have found inaccuracies for businesses when I go to either Google Maps or Apple Maps, looking for some kind of, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's any kind of service business, and their hours are wrong. It says they're open, but they're not. And I drive 15 minutes across town only to pull my hair out. So these are things that I think will really help from a guest experience, but also can help, and Keith, I'll let you talk a little bit more about that, but it can help with that local search, especially as audiences are shifting to more, to more local or regional travel.
One of the things that we're seeing a lot, or we're hearing from our partners a lot, I'm sure a lot of our partners on the phone are experiencing, is people are waiting to the last minute to book. And in many destinations, people are traveling to where they're going without even having a hotel stay. They're like, we'll figure it out when we get there, because we want to see who is open and what's not. So imagine driving all the way to the beach, spending time on the beach, being like, okay, now we're going to look for a hotel, and you do a search for a hotel near me, and a hotel that's a block away, the Google My Business listing is saying we're temporarily closed, even though you're wide open. So that's a missed opportunity for somebody who could be walking in that night. So absolutely want to keep your information consistent, up to date, but also taking advantage of the ability to add FAQs into your Google My Business, or to be able to expand out on location pages. The more you can help answer people's questions for them, the more likely they're going to trust you and book with you. So, look at like, what time is check-in? Do you have valet parking? Can I bring my dog? Those FAQs that are on the sites definitely should be something that can be brought in and optimized for the GMB, because if people are looking for it on the website, they're going to ask the same question when they find your local listing.
Yep, absolutely. In the interest of time too, because I want to make sure we've got plenty of time at the end, both for questions and then some of the questions you and I we're going to address back and forth. I'm going to go fairly quickly through the next two, but I think it's really important your CRM platform, right? Your email marketing. If you don't have something to look at something, and then if you have something, how it is the data clean, right? Is it good data? Is it consistent data? And are you using the features? I've seen so many people where I go in to talk to them and we look at their CRM and they're using a fraction of what it's capable of. And so really making sure if you're paying for something that you're actually using it and getting the benefit. And we're seeing some great results on email marketing at very low spends. Keith, I know you and I chatted about a few things earlier with some great results. I wouldn't want to just chime in quickly before we move on.
Yeah, I don't want to go into too many, great success stories. I just will mention that it's amazing how many people forget about email marketing or neglect email marketing. And because the whole idea of like email is dead, but I mean, that's all people are looking at right now is looking at their inboxes, and Black Friday still thrives with tons of emails going out. So email is still king, and it's one of the best ways to get messages in front of people, to give them a reason to book with you, to give them a reason to come to town. And one of the things that we often forget about is because it's a conditional offer that go out, you don't have to give an offer that's in parity through an email campaign. You can give special offers and discounts and enticements to people through your email audience to come stay with you that you don't have to publicize. So if you are getting to the case where you want to be building demand, and if you want to be playing that discount game without and trying to steal share from the OTAs, take advantage of the audience, because those are people who said, I want to get messages from you. So between your email audience and your social messages, those are people who said, talk to me, tell me what's going on, let me know when there's something I can take advantage of. I want to hear from you. And too many of us just seem to be going, I'll get to you later, and not paying attention to it. And it's very inexpensive. So compare, for the cost of a couple of Expedia bookings, you can run an entire email campaign for 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On that front, so you guys, one of the other things, obviously, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about paid marketing. What I will say here is you definitely want to look at, if you're not running paid right now and your hotel's open, look at bringing this back. We are seeing low cost per click because not as many people are competing. We're seeing great return on ad spend, great results. And it's really, as long as you're aligning with, again, the types of customers that are booking, right? So thinking through your unique selling points, those local audience strategies. I wouldn't be, if I was a New York hotel, I would not be running an international campaign right now, for example, right? There's no international travel, but what can you do in the local and regional market and those things? And I want to tie together, and then Keith and I are going to ask, shift gears and talk about a few different questions and other things to think about. But I want to tie it together with a unique example, and I think Keith has a couple too. I thought this was really interesting, getting creative. I'm kind of putting it all together. This is a hotel, the Royal Park Hotel, that is doing a concert series. And, you might think, hey, concerts, really? They have a lot of balconies and a whole side of the hotel that is set up in a way that they can bring concerts in. And they have this whole package that includes guest accommodations for 2, and then 8 tickets. So you can, you and a few of us for reserved seating on a terrace. So you're socially distanced from others. Putting together and talking to the GM at this hotel, they're doing quite well, and they're using, obviously they're updating their website content. There's a pop-up on the image on the left is a pop-up on their website. They've got a lot of social media content around it. They're obviously, there's partnerships, the Maker's Mark, the credit union in the area, and of course they're emailing, using their email list to help capture demand as well. So just one idea. Keith, did you want to add one more, and then I'll move on to the last poll?
I'll just add that the big annual festivals and the big annual activities that we all relied upon are temporarily gone. And what is popping up is people filling the void to come up with great new activities. I mean, like drive-in theaters are back, right? Drive-in movies have made a comeback because it's like, get a whole bunch of people together in their car and sit and watch a movie, right? So one of the challenges that partners have found ways to overcome is finding these unique opportunities that's happening locally. And the downside is you don't have 6 months to prepare for the festival to start messaging. You sometimes have 6 days because you just found out about it. So depending on your market, one of the things that I would encourage you to incorporate into your strategy for next year is a prep or is an intention to go for speed to market of, I got to come up with something that's got to be fast. So that's where something like a social media post and email campaigns can work really well, because here's something fun and exciting and a reason to come back to town, since you probably don't want to be sitting in your house this weekend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Awesome. So guys, one last poll, and this is a multi-select, so you can select as many as you want. But where are you focusing your dollars in 2021? And or if you have an idea, probably should have added a no clue. One of the things we didn't really get a chance to talk about today, Keith, why everyone's answering the survey, is reputation management. So I know you wanted to touch on that just a little bit. Maybe now's a good time.
Yeah, I definitely would encourage everyone to put a lot of emphasis and effort and focus onto their reputation management for next year, because nobody's going to be able to afford to have a really bad review sitting at the top of your TripAdvisor page for 4 weeks while you're waiting for the next review to push it down. So what are you doing at your property level to encourage, inspire, and drive more TripAdvisor bookings, more online reputation, engaging with people and responding to reviews? I mean, there's, going back to the old Cornell story of like a one-page increase leads to an 11% increase in your rate, right? I mean, right now, nobody can afford to lose a room because somebody's not happy. And so, focus on training, focus on reputation response, and really incorporate that into your focus for next year.
Oh, awesome. I'm gonna give you guys about 5 more seconds, and then I'm gonna shut the poll, and we'll publish the answers and share results. Awesome. So, excuse me. As you guys can see, digital marketing, digital media is probably your biggest percentage of audience, and then social media, SEO are close seconds. And that's kind of in line with what I've been seeing and hearing as I'm talking to customers, is really focusing on areas where for lower dollars you're seeing great returns. So definitely something like to think about. So now that we've got this plan, here's the $50,000 question. How do I get my plan approved? Keith, what's the magic bullet?
I wish I actually had the answer for that. I tried for years and put together the spreadsheets. Honestly, I think probably the reason why I failed was I wasn't as successful as I would like to be, is the fact that there was too many other things to compete against and too many other cases that could be made that, yes, maybe it's more important for us to invest in raising the linen par level, or there's an opportunity to improve some of the on-property elements. But right now, I think the case can really be made. And one of the great things about digital is every action, first off, is trackable, measurable, reportable, researchable, and you can go back and test and redo it and revise it. It's one of the best ways. Like, no other thing on your budget is going to give you that level of in-depth knowledge as far as this is what my dollar went for and this is what I got out of it. So it's going to be very important. Digital is going to be vital for your performance next year. Like, nobody is going to recover. Nobody's going to grow any business without a strong digital presence, because that's how you're going to get found, and that's how your customers right now are going to come in. Because again, it's going to be a while to corporate's back. Group's not coming back anytime soon. The other thing that digital does provide is it's very difficult to have a negative return on investment for any dollar you invest in digital. Everything can directly point back to, for every dollar you spent, something should be able to be offset, right? So for every dollar we spent to increase bookings through our website, you should be able to offset commission expenses and OTAs. For every more impressions that are being answered by your website for FAQs and Google search results and through chat bots and other messaging tools, that could cut down on phone calls to the front desk, which will increases their productivity, which can increase their service scores, which can get you increases in TripAdvisor. So everything is directly correlatable to a positive. And in some cases, you might just have to make the case a little harder. And I think that's something that we can help with. But just to give one example, in preparing for this, I just went in and I randomly pulled a hotel out of our performance for last year. And just like, I'm just going to do a hotel here in Washington, D.C. And I looked at their performance and I said, what would happen if we increased their conversion rate 1%, right? So that was for every visitor that went to the website. Could we get them to, from the visit the website to ultimately click and make a purchase? This property had a 2.2% conversion rate, which is a little lower than the industry standard, but not bad. What would happen if we just invested in a 1% increase to get that to a 3.2%? And this property would have had a 40% increase in their revenue compared to where they ended up, right? Which attributed to an $800,000 increase in their revenue, right? So for a fraction of that, if we had invested a little bit more in paid, if we had invested a little bit more in increasing some imagery, if we had put a little bit more into some of the other channels, or done some more social categories, we could have generated an extra $800,000 in room revenue. Plus, when you combine that with how much revenue could we have, how much inventory could we have displaced from the OTAs that would have had a commission tied to that, that 40% increase in revenue could have turned into a 50% increase in revenue. And I'm sorry, but show me any line item in your budget that when you put money in, you're gonna get money back, right? So it's super vital to get found right now. And it's one of the few things that you can invest in that will make you money. So for those two reasons, that's how you gotta, those are my recommendations. Keep an eye on how you gotta get this to an owner. Like, this is why you have to spend it. This is more important than fill in the blank, because there's so many other things that you're gonna be arguing over of which you need to spend money on. Do you need another shuttle van? Well, if the other one's not dead yet, don't spend on it. Put it into your digital, because that's going to make money more than your shuttle service is going to.
Exactly. Thanks, Keith. A few other things to think about. So you want to look at your market, right? San Diego, Myrtle Beach, Maui, all beach markets, all very different trends right now. If you look at Maui and San Diego on the opposite spectrum of the STR reports. And you should be monitoring STR for the trends, what's going on in your market. One of the things I'm hearing a lot of folks are doing is I'm going to be optimistic and call it good, better, best budgeting. So they're creating not just one, but maybe two or even three versions of their budgets for next year. Kind of a baseline. This is what we got to do to make sure the bills are paid and the basics. And then looking at, hey, if we had a 5% lift in occupancies and revenues, what would that look like, and where could we spend? And then a 10%, and then kind of looking at even possibly stair-stepping their budgets in as they go along. And then the other thing is thinking about the timelines. When should you start the process? And it was very mixed. When we did that poll, it was almost 50-50, a few more on the late side versus early. But talk with your hotels, your management, your teams, and when should you start this process, and when should you look to pivot? Lastly, let me kind of talk quickly through just the takeaways. And well, from our perspective, I mean, you heard Keith, and I strongly agree, double down on digital. Really think through where you can be spending your dollars that are going to generate a return. And digital, we know, can do that for you. Make your content current, and then continue to budget to update content as things change, as more things open, as guidelines. I can finally today go back inside a mall. I'm so excited. Anyway, get local right. Make sure that your guests aren't frustrated because I saw a property not that long ago where there were a lot of negative reviews both on Google and TripAdvisor because they said they had a pool and they had gotten rid of their pool a year earlier, right? So these little things that we forget: mobile, fast, stable, easy to use. Make sure everything's ADA accessible and ADA conforming, and look to answer questions. And really, secure budget, focus on revenue generation. How can you drive more revenue to your hotel? want to thank you so much for your time today. I'll go through in the interest, actually, we've kind of run out of time, so we will answer questions on the blog, but I do want to make sure for those of you that are interested, we know this is not a normal year. We know things are crazy. The first 10 people that want to register at go.milestoneinternet.com/audit will receive a complimentary budget recommendation session with one of our team members. So we'll actually look through your current strategies, what you're doing, and we'll give you some recommendations on how you could be doing things better and talk a little bit about what that might look like. And we didn't really want to come in today and say you should spend $2 here and $3 there, because everyone's budget and market and demands and needs are different. But the idea would really be to help guide on what's the right strategy and things to help you be as successful as you can possibly be in 2021. And again, I really want to thank everyone for their time today. Keith, any last minute words before we let the audience go?
No, I'll let everybody go. And thank you very much for your time, folks, and appreciate it. And hope everyone has a great holiday weekend.
Thanks, Keith. And again, go.milestoneinternet.com/audit if you want to sign up. And on that note, thank you so much for your time. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and good luck with budget season for 2021.